We are seeing the chapter on reproduction in plants. Reproduction in plants is of two types, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. We have already seen in detail about asexual reproduction. Now, let us see this chapter on sexual reproduction. What is sexual reproduction? It is the type of reproduction in which there are two types of gametes called the male and the female gametes. They fuse together to form a zygote. Now, which part of the plant plays the key role? It is the flower. Flower plays the key role as it is the reproductive part of the plant. There are two important parts of a flower. The male reproductive part is called the stamen and the female reproductive part is called the pistil. Let's see about them in detail. Let's see about the male reproductive part, that's the stamen. Can you look at the picture here? That's the stamen. You have the anther on top and there is a filament. Now anther in the stamen contains pollen grains. These pollen grains produce the male gametes. Next is the female reproductive part called the pistil. Can you look at the picture here? It has the pistil's picture wherein you have the style, the stigma, the ovary and the ovule, which are the parts of a pistil. This pistil consists of stigma, style and ovary. Ovary contains one or more ovules. The female gamete is formed in an ovule. Do you know that flowers are of two types? Unisexual flowers and bisexual flowers. What do they mean? Uni means one and bi means two. Unisexual flowers are those that contain either the male reproductive part or the female reproductive part. They contain either the pistil or the stamen. So you have some examples like corn, papaya, cucumber. Now coming to bisexual flowers. These are flowers that contain both male and female reproductive parts. That's the pistil and the stamen. You have examples like the mustard, the rose and petunia. The next important concept that we are seeing is called the pollination. What is pollination? It's the transfer of pollens from the anther to the stigma of a flower. There is the anther, you have the stigma, and what do you transfer? Yes, it's the pollens that get transferred. It's of two types. It's self-pollination and cross-pollination. What does it mean? When the pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant, it is called self-pollination. I repeat, when the pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant, it is called self-pollination. What do you mean by cross-pollination? When the pollen of a flower lands on the stigma of a flower of a different plant of the same kind, it is called cross-pollination. How are these pollens transferred? Pollen grains have a protective coat that prevents them from drying up. They are very light, so they are easily carried by the wind or water. Also, the insects visit the colorful and attractive flowers and carry away pollens on their bodies. That's the reason why flowers are beautiful and colorful. Now, next is fertilization. After pollination comes fertilization. In this, the fusion of male and female gametes take place. And what do they form? They form a zygote, which in turn develops into an embryo. Look at the picture. You have the pollen grain on top. As soon as fertilization takes place, there is a pollen tube which gets formed by itself and it reaches the ovum. So the zygote forms. This is called fertilization. What happens after fertilization? The fruit is formed. How? The ovary becomes the fruit. The fruit is actually the ripened ovary. The other parts of the flower fall off. Then the ovules which are there inside the ovary, they develop into seeds. These seeds contain an embryo enclosed in a protective coat. So the next time you are eating any fruit like apple or mango, you should remember it's the ovary that has become the fruit and the seed is nothing but the ovule. Another interesting topic here is seed dispersal. What is the meaning of dispersal? It is spreading to different places. Have you all observed that you find the same kind of plant in different places? How do you think they would have reached there? Yes, the answer is seed dispersal. The seeds get dispersed to different places by different ways. What are they? The wind, the water and the animals carry the seeds to different places. So, how does wind play a part in seed dispersal? We'll see now. The seeds of those plants which are very light, they get blown off with the wind to far off places. So there are different types of seeds which get dispersed by wind. They are the winged seeds. They are the light, hairy seeds. And you have hairy fruit. Let's see the examples for all. You see, drumstick and maple have winged seeds. Then you have the light, hairy seeds of grass. And then there is a hairy fruit, that is the sunflower. We saw the dispersal of seeds by wind. Now we are seeing the dispersal of seeds by water. So how do you think these seeds are dispersed by water? Now, these fruits have a fibrous or spongy outer coat. So what happens is air gets filled in the fibrous space, giving it the capacity of floating. Can you think of an example? Yes, it's the coconut. Do you remember? All of you can see here, the coconut has a fibrous outer cover. And what happens? It floats in the water and moves away, and then it grows into a coconut tree in a totally different place. All this is because of the ability to float. Next you have the dispersal of seeds by animals. So animals also play a part in seed dispersal. How? The fruits of these these fruits have spiny seeds with hooks. They get attached to the bodies of animals. So the hook plays an important role in getting itself attached to the body of animal, which in turn goes to another place and sheds those hooks. From there sprouts the new plants. You can see an example of xanthium. Can you see the hooks there? Yes. Now that we saw the dispersal of seeds by different modes like wind, water and animals, we have to see why the seed dispersal occurs or why it happens. This is nature's way of spreading out the plant to different parts of the world. But what is the advantage? Seeds are dispersed across to different places in order to avoid competition for sunlight, minerals, water and space. So imagine too many plants growing in one place. Then they will not have enough sunlight. Then all of them have to fight for water. All of them will have to fight for the minerals to grow. Ultimately, they don't thrive or they don't grow properly. So for the plants to develop into healthy plants so that there is no overcrowding, we need to have the seeds dispersed to different parts. This also enables the plants to invade new habitats, which means they go develop themselves in different places. So with this, we come to the end of this chapter on reproduction in plants. we had covered asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction, fertilization, pollination as a part of sexual reproduction, and then the seed dispersal.